Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I'm on a trail in Leesburg, Virginia. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I spent some time in court today. And because of that, I'm in Leesburg. And I have another appointment in Leesburg. The local Democratic committee for the county where I'm running for office to be re-elected as a director of the Loudoun Soil and Water Conservation District. They have a meeting tonight, and I'm going to attend that and see how we're doing. This will be our last official meeting before the election next month on November the 7th. That's the date here in Virginia, and I assume that's the Tuesday everybody's choosing every place else. The case that I was involved in, like a lot of cases, presented a question of how do you balance punishment with justice, meaning something that's appropriate, that's scalable, that fits the offense. And it was made difficult by the fact that it was a possession of child porn by a client who was much abused when younger, raising questions about whether that could explain or not what he did or his youth. And over a period of years, we've worked out a settlement in the case that seems right. But the system doesn't always allow for that time to pass or for that kind of settlement to come forward. And because the prosecutors I worked with, and there were a number of them, and myself and my client, we were able to accomplish something that resulted in him receiving punishment, but also receiving him some help going forward. Our system all too often doesn't do that. The judge I was before is a judge who, before he came on the bench, he was concerned about drug courts. That is a way, an alternative, to deal with people that are addicted. And so you might say that their will or ability to make decisions to do terrible things is somewhat hampered, although there is no defense for that. And I thought, I didn't get to choose him, but I thought because of that background, and I mentioned it in my argument to him today, that he could understand better than some might understand how we have to make decisions that really are personal to the person standing before the court. So I do in real life what I do when I comment on the air. So I thought some might be interested in that. Now this evening, I'm in a county that's considered a bellwether. That is to say, what goes on here may predict what's going to happen stateside and give us an indication of trends we should look for nationally. We have a number of people who are on the Republican side who are really furious about notions of equal rights, LGBTQ, public schools, the fact that religion is a personal right, not a governmental imposition. And so these notions are playing out in the local races. Now the race I'm in is not controversial, and it's really more like musical chairs. I don't mean to diminish the content of what we do, but 6 people running for 3 seats, and I'm one of the 3 that I hope will be elected. And there are 70 seats open across the county, and with that many seats across the county, with 2 or more people for each seat, you get a very clogged democratic system. And I almost think, unless you're part of a party or a group that is focusing on the elections and doing reviews of them, you are somewhat at a loss to understand how to vote. And this, in a way, parallels what we do in Congress. That is to say, if John Jones is considered steeped in the content of, say, a special committee that's passing a certain bill, then you might ask him, what do you think about this bill? And you would derive the wisdom from him for something that you don't study in detail. That certainly happens with elections. And when you have an undercount, meaning not everybody who voted for everybody who was up for votes, you get a sense of the, ignorance may not be the right word, but unaware enough of the credentials of people running to decide to vote or not. And there are what we call Google groups out there trying to educate everybody. This is kind of in contrast to what we see on the Hill. Now, as I'm walking, if I understand the reports right, and I was in court today, so you have to figure that out. What I gather is Trump is thinking going to the hell, that's an interesting slip, to the Hill to help the Republican conference figure out what to do after McCarthy, his lapdog, failed to hang on to a speakership just because he doesn't understand that lying and striking agreements are predicates to cooperation and succession as a Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House, that's they say that they may do it in a week. I think there's a good chance that they won't do it in a week, and maybe several weeks, and maybe at all. And that's dangerous because no legislation moves when we're in that paralysis. And there are very serious questions about what we're going to do in our international affairs having to do with Ukraine. So that's pretty interesting. I think we see a pattern in Trump's conduct, which, has been apparent all along. And it goes like this, that he came to New York to try to put a different face on a case he's going to lose, hoping that the deplorables will continue to support him because they believe what he said outside the courtroom, that then was contradicted in several material respects by the judge in the courtroom. Not just his behavior to coerce, is the right word, staff for the court, but also his version of what the judge may do at the case, which is to say, judge take back his words about the fraud the judge found that Trump had committed. We have a thread going through several cases that tell us that Trump already knows he can't win, sort of like the election. He knew in September, before the election in 2020, he couldn't win. So they started making plans to have this theory of, they stole us. I was robbed, And now he's trying to do that with the courts and the Congress and whomever else gets in the way. And the interesting factoid in that mix is how he's being seen to be manipulating it in this simplistic fashion. He comes to court to perhaps intimidate the witnesses, to tell the judge, I'm here, but the judge has long experience, and the judge has already told him, you take down that information about my staff, and you don't do it anymore. And as for me changing my mind, I've made up my mind, and I'm standing by it. So that's one case. Open for consideration is, what is the court going to do in the D.C. case in which Judge Chutkan has the case and is considering her own gag order. And we know that in Colorado, where they have a case against Trump for Article 14, Section 3, namely that he supported an insurrection, and that amendment provides that you can bar the person from holding office given that he took an oath to support and uphold the Constitution and the government, and then he does exactly the opposite. It's a provision that was passed during the Civil War, and there are a number of states that are going to invoke it. I think Colorado was the first, and the judge in the Colorado case entered an order to stop the music on what Trump was doing. So far, there hasn't been a charge related to that order. So the creeping improvement of we the people keeps moving in the right direction, aided by the scoundrels on the Hill and in Trump's campaign and in the wake of Trump's misconduct. Now, there are, 20 or 50 matters we could talk about, but it just so happened that in between the court case and the Democratic meeting tonight, I stopped to have an iced tea, and while I was there, somebody had put out about 80 different books, all banned. As I understand it, there are thousands of books banned, and they're banned from libraries that children would use. And in the Washington Post last week, I read a story, and I'm not sure what state, so I won't say whether it's Florida or Texas, but they're candidates. And they were going to ban certain books in the library that adults couldn't see them. And so we're talking about things, those of us of my generation, Animal Farm, all these books that we read that now are banned. So children don't know these things, can't formulate reactions to it and form who they are, what they think, to select who they want to be, to select what they'll do in life. All those things are denied people, or just to amuse themselves. But anything that approximates something that we didn't deal with as a kid, like LGBTQ, it's in the new set of books. You know, how can you talk about those things? Well, if you're a child and you're looking for some window on what that could mean to you, having access to these books is the way to do it. And children are not delicate flowers. And each of us, who's listening to me or thinking about their own life, may remember, the things that challenged you, but you were probably searching out things, looking for things, curiosity. I'm a firm believer that if something doesn't catch a child, that interests them so they want to do it, that's really unfortunate and tragic. Because if something catches you like that, then it's motivating, it's vitalizing. It makes you better for yourself, better for your community, your family, everything. And I think that the Republicans want to just stop the world. They want to censor people from thinking or speaking or dealing with ideas or being different. And no civilization can exist in that way. And that's why when we read 1984, and there's that horrendous scene in which a person who was, fair to say, a free thinker at a time when freedom in thinking was scorned, is insisted upon to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. And it's not that it's ideological, but it is that it's so important to be truthful and right that a person says, it's 5. It's 5. How can you defy it? And it's kind of interesting that it was the dialogues of the Greeks that set up the notion that what our knowledge is comes in the amnesia of the transition before you're born. And so that you are born with knowledge. And the example used is what we know about math. And so I don't know if that's what was being considered, but I find it hard to believe because it was so thoughtfully constructed, the book 1984, that it is about that notion that 2 + 2 = 4, not 5. And if you can break a person so that they believe that, think of the foundation they're abandoning. So why am I talking about that? Because they're asking us to abandon certain things, about the stars, about people who are different than we are, about who should have freedom and who should not, about the dangers of a transgender child, about the fear of public education.
That's not bad.
And so you put all those things together and you have a proposal for a very repressive society. And the authors of this kind of government and that kind of society are the Republicans. So it doesn't surprise me, putting away that he wants to be the center of attention, that Trump wants to go to the Hill, to the People's House, to the Congress, and get them to foster this irrational belief in things that are false and distortive and challenge clear and intelligent thinking. So that's a few of my thoughts. So go reread a banned book or one of the new ones and celebrate the fact that we can think, and that it's critically important that those who succeed us must be able to think, because that is one of the treasures we have to pass on to people. Being able to think, being able to innovate, being able to create a community that truly is free and that is democratically elected and supports a republic. So with that, I say good evening to you on my trail in Leesburg, Virginia, and hopefully I'll talk to you from the more familiar trail tomorrow.